In the dim light of the old farmhouse, Maria Elena, a 57-year-old woman, found herself in a situation she had never dared to imagine. As the fire crackled in the hearth and the rich aroma of aged mezcal filled the air, Carlos's hands found hers, and she realized that this secret would bind them forever, like an old rope tucked away in the attic. How had she, an ordinary mother-in-law, arrived at this moment? How could she look into her daughter's eyes without revealing the fire that burned in her chest, without shattering everything they had built over the years? Let me tell you how one night turned my life upside down, like an old mortar filled with boiling heat, she thought, standing by the dusty window of the farmhouse. Outside, the sky split open with flashes of lightning, as if someone above had organized a 90s party with strobe lights and booming speakers playing band music. The rain hammered against the tiled roof like a drunken mariachi on drums, while the wind howled like their neighbor, Mrs. Rosa, when she didn't get her atoll at the fiesta. Maria Elena and Carlos, who was 35, had spent the entire day working at the farmhouse like two laborers on a mission. She busied herself cleaning shelves filled with jars of mole, pickled chiles, and jams, polishing the old photographs where she and her late husband danced to the tune of a record player in the town square. Carlos, lean and strong, with hands made for wielding a machete or holding a woman close, was fixing the creaky barn door, muttering about how the old nails were sturdier than the modern ones. Maria Elena, with a spark still in her eyes, had a curvy figure reminiscent of the heroines from old Mexican films and a knack for making anyone laugh, even when the sky was gloomier than the weather outside. She wore an embroidered blouse adorned with colorful flowers, a long cotton skirt that swayed gracefully as she walked, and braided leather sandals that accentuated her well-groomed feet, with red painted nails peeking out. A red shawl draped over her shoulders, and silver earrings tinkled softly, adding a touch of feminine mystery that made her presence feel warm and inviting. They had come alone to prepare the farmhouse for a big family gathering. Her daughter, Ana Luisa, Carlos's wife, stayed in the city with the grandchildren. Someone had to tame those little rascals who ran through the house like a whirlwind, drawing on the walls with markers. The day had been busy. She polished the old mortar while Carlos wrestled with a leaky faucet in the kitchen, cursing like an experienced plumber. As she reminisced about her youth, when she and her friends would sneak away from chemistry class to the river, laughing until they cried while her first boyfriend nearly capsized the canoe trying to kiss her, she noticed Carlos smiling at her stories. His smile was like a ray of sunshine on a cloudy day, and she found herself surprised by the warmth it brought her. As evening fell, they finally sank into the worn-out sofa, and nature put on a real show. The lights flickered, winking at them like an old friend before going out completely. Silence enveloped the room, broken only by the crackling of the fire and the thunder that rattled the windows, echoing her own nerves as she approached retirement. Outside, the storm raged, and inside, the air smelled of dampness, old wood, and something comforting, like her mother's tamales. "How's it going, Maria Elena?" Carlos asked, dusting off his jeans and pulling a bottle of mezcal from the cabinet. "Let's warm up the country way." She smiled as she watched him skillfully pour the amber liquid into carved glasses, as if he had dedicated his whole life to this craft. The fire danced in the hearth, casting flickering reflections on his face. In that moment, she thought he looked like a hero from one of those movies where the bearded man saves the day. The atmosphere thickened with unspoken tension, and she felt a flutter in her chest that she hadn't experienced in years. The storm outside seemed to mirror the tempest of emotions brewing within her. The storm outside raged on, but inside the cozy living room, Maria Elena and Carlos found themselves nestled on the old rug in front of the fireplace. The cushions behind them smelled of dust and a floral perfume reminiscent of gardenias, a scent that brought back memories of her mother. The mezcal burned pleasantly as it slid down her throat, warming her from the inside out. "Let me tell you about my youth," she began, her voice carrying the weight of nostalgia. I used to dance until dawn to cumbia music, convincing my friends to skip physics class to head to the river. There was this one time my first boyfriend nearly capsized the canoe while trying to kiss me, and I just laughed as he splashed around in the water. Carlos chuckled, pouring her another glass of mezcal. Wow, Maria Elena, you were quite the danger to men, he teased, his deep voice reminiscent of an old radio tune that sent shivers down her spine. Oh, Carlos, don't start, she rolled her eyes dramatically. That was 100 years ago. Now I'm just a grandmother who makes tortillas, knits baby clothes, and scolds everyone. Not a chance, he replied, leaning in closer. She caught a whiff of his earthy cologne, like the desert after rain. You're still a danger. Look at you, laughing like a schoolgirl, he continued, his gaze lingering on her. And that figure, any young woman would envy it. Her cheeks flushed, recalling the village festival where she had danced with abandon, not in this quiet house with her son-in-law. She placed her hand on his firm shoulder, warm as if he had been lifting weights all day instead of fixing doors. Carlos held her gaze, his dark eyes reflecting the flickering flames. Her heart raced like an old clock, and she realized she was at a crossroads, either retreat or leap into the unknown. Maria Elena, he started, but she interrupted him with a whisper. Shoo, Carlitos, the storm is outside, and we're here keeping warm. A slow smile spread across her face, like a cat that knew its prey was cornered. Then he leaned in and kissed her, a confident kiss flavored with mezcal and something forbidden. Thunder rumbled, shaking the house, but all she could hear was her heart and his warm breath, like the fire crackling beside them. Her fingers glided along his neck, feeling the tension in his muscles as he pulled her closer, as if afraid she might vanish into the shadows. This is official now, he murmured, breaking away for a moment to catch his breath. Mother-in-law and son-in-law preparing for a party, he joked, his voice trembling with laughter, but his eyes told a different story. Only if the storm cooperates, she replied, feeling a fire inside her that burned brighter than the flames in the hearth. They laughed, but the laughter faded into another deep kiss, passionate and intense like a summer night. The rain drummed against the roof, a rhythm that matched the chaos of sounds and shadows surrounding them. His hands traveled down her back gently, yet with an urgency that quickened her pulse. She wasn't a young girl anymore, but there was something about this man that made her feel alive and desired, just like when she was 20. Maria Elena, he whispered, burying his face in her neck. Are you sure this isn't a dream? If it is, I don't want to wake up, she breathed, tangling her fingers in his slightly damp hair. The day had been long, and the night stretched on endlessly. They sank into the old sofa, the same one that had creaked since the days of her late husband. Now it came alive beneath them, protesting with each movement. Her nails gently grazed his back, like an artist leaving marks on a canvas, while his hands explored her curves with reverence, as if mapping out a treasure. She felt no shame in her fuller, mature figure, like a fine wine that improved with age, and he, from the way his fingers trembled, appreciated her perfectly. In that moment, she caught a glimpse of his admiration for her sandals, noticing how he brushed against her feet with care, as if the woven leather and her red nails added a special charm to their intimacy, a subtle nod to the traditional footwear that evoked sensual traditions without crossing any lines. The storm raged outside, and the old sofa creaked under their weight, its groans reminiscent of a disgruntled grandfather. Careful, the sofa might not hold up, Carlos chuckled, his voice light but laced with an undercurrent of excitement. Maria Elena exhaled, pulling him closer. I'll show you what a real burden feels like, she teased, her eyes sparkling with mischief. Their laughter mingled with the sound of rain pounding against the roof, a natural symphony that echoed the chaos of their emotions. His shirt lay discarded by the fireplace, and her hair was tousled, reminiscent of a girl who had just danced the night away. "You're a dangerous woman, Maria Elena," he said, momentarily pulling back to catch his breath, his gaze lingering on her disheveled hair that framed her face like a romantic lead in a film. "And you, Carlos, are too young to resist me," she winked, feeling the thrill of their connection surge between them like the storm outside. The tempest showed no signs of abating, but they were oblivious to the world beyond the walls of the cozy living room. The fire crackled, the mezcal warmed her from within, and sparks flew between them, brighter than the lightning illuminating the night sky. It felt wrong, reckless even, yet oh, how good it felt. Here she was, a 57-year-old mother-in-law with curves that told stories of life, and he, her son-in-law, with dark eyes that held a depth of understanding and hands that knew how to hold on. They hadn't crossed any lines, but every glance, every brush of skin promised more than mere words could convey. As dawn broke, sunlight filtered through the clouds, casting a soft glow over the old farmhouse. Maria Elena stretched, feeling a pleasant heaviness in her body, and turned to see Carlos bustling in the kitchen, humming a tune that reminded her of their shared moments. His eyes flickered back to her, as if the warmth of the fire still lingered between them. "The storm was the perfect cover, wasn't it, Carlos?" she said, pouring herself a cup of tea. "No one will ever know." He nodded, a smile hidden behind his cup. "This house isn't just for parties anymore, it's our little hideaway," he whispered, and the warmth of his words spread through her chest. Yet, within her, two voices fought for dominance. One, emboldened by the mezcal and the crackling fire, whispered, "Live, Maria Elena, you're still young, embrace life." The other, strict and reminiscent of her mother's sternness in her youth, insisted, "Get a grip, he's your son-in-law. What will Ana Luisa think? What will people say?" She pushed those thoughts aside, but they buzzed around her like pesky flies, especially when she looked at Carlos and saw the same fire reflected in his eyes. Returning to the city with family, they were filled with tales of battling the rain and darkness. Ana Luisa asked questions, the children jumped around, and Maria Elena caught fleeting glances from Carlos, each one so heated that she had to look away to hide her blush. "Why are you smiling so much, Mom?" Ana Luisa squinted at her while chopping salad. "Oh. The storm last night was something else," Maria Elena shrugged, trying to play it cool, though her heart raced knowing Carlos was nearby. He choked on his tea, and she turned away, stifling a laugh. "Let them think what they want," she mused silently. "Our storm is ours alone." The party buzzed like a Saturday market, the farmhouse alive with laughter and chatter. The table sagged under the weight of tamales, pozole, homemade preserves, and smoky carnitas. The children raced through the garden, their shouts louder than sirens, tumbling into the grass, covered in dirt. Maria Elena, in her best floral dress, radiated joy as she served atole, her heart swelling with happiness at the family gathering. Across from her sat Carlos, her son-in-law, whose dark eyes now held not just teasing but a flame ignited during that stormy night. They both understood that this house was no longer just a venue for celebrations, it was their secret sanctuary. Ana Luisa recounted the children's mischief, how the youngest had drawn on the walls with markers and the oldest had tried to fix the vacuum, flooding the bathroom in the process. Carlos nodded along, but his gaze kept catching hers, electric and unyielding. Maria Elena brushed her fingers against his hand while passing the salad or adjusting the tablecloth, letting her skin graze his wrist just enough to send a thrill through her. The day unfolded, laughter and warmth enveloping them, yet the unspoken tension lingered, a promise of what lay beneath the surface. Maria Elena couldn't help but smile as she took a bite of the tamale, though her heart raced with a mix of excitement and anxiety. "Carlos, why so pensive?" Ana Luisa asked, glancing at him with a hint of suspicion as she piled another tamale onto her plate. No, just thinking, he replied, shaking his head, casting a quick glance at Maria Elena that sent a shiver through her, like a blender whirring to life. This house is just so cozy. I feel the urge to check everything to make sure it's all in order. He nearly choked on his atoll, coughing into his napkin just in time. Oh, Ana Luisa, your husband is a master at everything, Maria Elena said with an innocent smile. Without him, I would have been lost during the storm. Carlos smiled back, and Ana Luisa merely nodded, busy with her food, completely unaware of the undercurrents swirling around them. Maria Elena felt a twinge of guilt. Her daughter was always a bit lost in her own world, and while Maria Elena was glad for her happiness, it was tinged with something deeper. What could she do? The storm had tied her to Carlos more tightly than a rope on an old canoe. As night fell and the guests departed, the house quieted, and the children settled down. Maria Elena found herself on the porch, gazing up at the stars peeking through the torn clouds. Carlos stepped outside, carrying 2 cups of tea. He sat down beside her, and they fell into a comfortable silence, listening to the crickets serenading the night. The silence hung heavy between them, as if they both understood they had crossed a line. Maria Elena, he began, looking into his cup. This isn't just a whim. I'm talking about us. She sighed, feeling her heart tighten. Carlos, we're like 2 fools who found matches and decided to play with fire. What if the house burns down? He looked at her, and his eyes held a mix of desire, doubt, and fear. What if it doesn't? He asked quietly. If we're just careful, my king, she replied, though the laughter that followed was bitter. Careful, he echoed. It's like dancing on the edge of a roof during a storm. One misstep, and it's all over. He took her hand, his fingers warm against hers, just like that night. Then let's dance carefully, he said with the boldness that had captivated her from the start. They lingered in that moment until the tea cooled and the stars shone brighter. She knew this conversation wouldn't resolve anything. The storm within them was far from over, and they both felt it. The next day, they decided to heat up the steam room, that old, twisted structure that still stood firm like their secret. While Carlos chopped wood, Maria Elena carried water, stealing glances at him again and again. He wielded the machete with the ease of someone born to it, and she couldn't take her eyes off how his muscles tensed beneath his old shirt. Maria Elena, don't distract me, he teased, catching her gaze. Or the machete might fly away from the wood, she shot back playfully, swaying her hips intentionally, reminiscent of her dancing days at the fair. The steam room heated up, and they entered to check if everything was ready. The air was thick with the scent of herbs and humidity, wrapping around them like a secret. He closed the door, and in the dim light, amidst the warm air, his hands found hers again. This isn't a storm anymore, it's a fire, she whispered, yet she didn't pull away, feeling his warmth blend with the steam. Then let's burn together, he replied, and his lips found hers, as hot as the air around them. They embraced the subtle thrill of the steam and herbs, evoking sensory rituals from their heritage, brushing against her sandals gently, admiring how the leather softened in the humidity, adding a tactile charm that was both censored and intriguing. They didn't cross the line, but every moment in that steam room felt like a dance on the edge. When they emerged, flushed and with damp hair, Ana Luisa looked at them with mild surprise. Why so happy? She asked. The steam room turned out great. More than great, Carlos replied, casting a look at Maria Elena that weakened her knees. Maria Elena knows how to stoke the fire. She nearly burst into laughter but turned away, adjusting the towel on her head. Then came the encounters in the car. Carlos offered to drive her into town for supplies. Of course, they stopped on a rural road, far from prying eyes. The car rolled to a stop on a quiet country road, the sun setting behind the distant hills, casting a warm glow over the landscape. Maria Elena didn't have a chance to say a word before Carlos pulled her into his arms. The windows fogged up as laughter filled the air, the soft melodies of Vicente Fernandez playing on the radio, reminiscent of their youth, when they would sneak kisses away from prying eyes. "Maria Elena, are you going to take me to the grave?" he murmured, planting a kiss on her neck, his breath warm against her skin. "Where do you get this energy at 57? I can still hold my own, Carlos," she teased back, a playful glint in her eyes. "Just hold on tight, young man." Back at the house, however, Ana Luisa began to notice the changes. She didn't ask outright, but her questions grew sharper. One evening, during dinner, she looked at Carlos over a bowl of pozole and asked, "Carlos, why do you spend so much time at the estate?" Maria Elena froze, spoon halfway to her mouth, but Carlos remained unfazed. "There's so much work to do, Ana Luisa," he replied calmly, his gaze steady. "The roof, the plumbing, that old mortar and pestle." "Do you know how old that house is?" she pressed. "Yes," Ana Luisa replied, but her tone was laced with doubt. "Mom, why are you so quiet? Don't you get tired of being there with him?" Maria Elena smiled, trying to mask her nervousness. "Ana Luisa, with Carlos, there's never a dull moment. He's like a son, always helping out." Carlos coughed, hiding a smile, while Maria Elena turned back to the stove, fighting the urge to laugh. Their eyes met briefly, each glance sparking with unspoken words. The secret meetings continued, hidden in the barn under the guise of fixing a shelf, or in the attic. Once, they lingered in the pantry, supposedly checking jars of peppers. Surrounded by the musty scent of dampness and pickles, Carlos pressed her against the cold wall, the heat radiating from his body contrasting with the chill of the stone behind her. "Do you understand what we're doing?" she whispered, her hands finding their way around his neck. "I understand," he replied, his lips brushing against hers. "And I don't want to stop." There was another moment in the garden, pretending to check if the rain had eroded the crops. Under the old cactus, where the air smelled of wet earth and ripe fruit, he took her hand, and they paused, listening to the raindrops falling from the leaves. "I don't know how to stop this, and I don't want to," Maria Elena confessed, looking into his eyes. She fell silent, unsure of what to say. Inside her, a storm raged, not the one rumbling outside, but one born from his words, his gaze, and his touch. She knew it was wrong, but every time he was near, she felt not like a mother-in-law or a grandmother, but a woman full of life. They joked and laughed, but deep down, they knew they were playing with fire. Ana Luisa hadn't caught on yet, but her probing questions kept them on edge. One day, while they were in the kitchen, Ana Luisa suddenly said, "Mom, you're different. You're glowing like a young girl. Is it the estate that's doing this to you?" Maria Elena froze, but she laughed to cover her nervousness. "The estate, Ana Luisa, the fresh air. And you, Carlos, a master at everything. Without you there, I'd be bored." Ana Luisa looked at both of them, but said nothing, just nodded and went to tuck the kids in. Carlos and Maria Elena exchanged glances, and in his eyes, she saw the same question that tormented her: how long could they keep this secret? Yet, every time they found themselves alone, the storm returned, not the one raging outside, but the one that lived within them. This house, steeped in mezcal, rain, old wood, and herbs from the steam room, became their refuge, a place where they could be themselves, if only for a moment. She knew this secret, like an old mortar and pestle, would hold the warmth of their encounters, even when the party ended. But deep down, she feared. What if one day Ana Luisa noticed the sparks in their glances? What if this storm that united them turned into a hurricane that destroyed everything? Still, looking at Carlos, his smile, his hands, she couldn't stop herself. It might be wrong, it might be risky, but in this fire, she felt alive. Just when they thought they could control it, she received a message on her phone, a photo of them in the garden, taken from a distance, anonymous and chilling. Who had seen them? How could they move forward now without the secret exploding and destroying their family? Subscribe to the channel,